100 Acre Wood has always been one of the more interesting recurring aspects of the Kingdom Hearts series, because despite being in 4, technically 5 games in the entire franchise, it's very seldom talked about in broader series discussion, at least from my experience. The only time I've heard it mentioned consistently is when people are complaining about literally every line of code in Kingdom Hearts 3. And that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? This corner of the series has obviously had a good bit of love put into it, so let's discuss all the major iterations of the woods while also briefly bringing up Birth by Sleep.
We all lived here in the 100 Acre Wood.
Kingdom Hearts 1's version of the 100 Acre Wood is very weird, which in of itself is weird because it's the very first version. You'd think the other versions would build more upon it. But I mean, just to start, only 3 of the Wood's 7 characters have voice actors. While Owl, Rabbit, Eeyore, and Roo are voiced in future games, only Pooh, Tigger, and Piglet have working vocal cords during the events of KH1. And also, the characters are just kind of weirdly implemented, specifically Owl, who either acts as this omnipotent tutorial character or a rare nut collector. But let's talk about the minigames because they're obviously the headlining feature here, and in KH1 specifically, they sure do exist. I mean, a lot of them kind of have that KH1 charm. They're clunky and finicky in a lot of ways, but they're really trying and they feel quite genuine. It's just that unlike KH1 as a whole, which I find to be an immensely enjoyable experience despite occasional clunkiness, the 100 Acre Woods minigames aren't fun. I'll discuss them from least to most favorite. First, Pooh's Swing. It's literally just pressing the R1 button in time with Owl's wings opening up. It's truly riveting. Block Tigger, yeah, that's what you do. I mean, it's barely a step up from Pooh's Swing, you really just hit a single button a bunch of times. This time, the triangle button for some much needed variety. But at least you have to position yourself on top of a carrot to have the rushed command appear. But that's also kind of weird because there's literally nothing in the game that even hints to this being how the mechanic works. You kind of just have to figure it out. Both of these two are pretty even in quality. Pooh's Swing is much more boring, but at least has a very cute framing device. Block Tigger isn't that much more invigorating and is also kind of confusing, and the framing device being I'm not going to enable Tigger's primal urge to destroy carrots for no reason is less fun. Just set up an intervention so this doesn't happen again. Pooh's Honey Hunt, it's fine, I guess. It's very clunky and be quite annoying at times, but it's fine. And I have a similar opinion to Pooh's Muddy Path. It's way too slow with all these unskippable cutscenes, and God help you if you fall off the log and have to get wind blasted again. But I don't know, I kind of like the platformy puzzle aspects. Every character needing a unique way to interact with them is kind of interesting. And finally, the best one, Tigger's Giant Pot. Side note, isn't it kind of weird how all 5 minigames have either Pooh or Tigger in their titles? Whatever. Tigger's Giant Pot is just very funny. Objectively speaking, it's horrible, but I have a lot of fun with it because it's just so weird. But speaking of Tigger and substance abuse, I think the bouncing spot is my favorite area in the woods pretty easily. There's a lot of unique treasure chests, and of course the incredibly famous 100 Acre Wood delicacy, rare nuts. I wish more areas in the woods were like this in all honesty. If there was more stuff to do outside of the minigames and cutscenes, I think my opinion on the woods would be greatly improved because, yeah, I do think 100 Acre Wood is my least favorite KH1 world, sadly. It's not really the world's fault, it's just that KH1 probably has the most consistent world selection in the series. Every world is at the very least good, so an inoffensive, sometimes frustrating minigame romp kind of has to be at the bottom, because I think other lower tier worlds like Atlantica and Agrabah have more going for them. That's not to say that the woods have nothing going for them. Its biggest strength is its charming atmosphere and lovely characters, and I think that aspect hits hardest in KH1 because Sora is the youngest he's been. It's his very first adventure, so having these silly stuffed animal buddies he can talk to, in between going knee-deep into Space Whale's gums and killing Satan, it's very nice, and the devs know this because the world is gradual. You collect more pages across the game and get what's basically different chapters of the world, making it something you come to as this breath of fresh air between a world, and that's its biggest strength in my opinion.
Everyone must have gone away while I was napping, I think.
I'll briefly mention the GBA version of the 100 Acre Wood because I think it's a strong contender for the worst world in the entire series. The only ones I can really think that can compete are like Union Cross Agrabah, Recoded Olympus, and Birth by Sleep Mysterious Tower. It's literally just an immensely annoying walking simulator. You have to walk Pooh across the woods while trying to reunite him with his friends, which involves the most basic quote-unquote puzzles I've ever seen in a game. And also, Pooh walks slower than the GBA is running on and constantly gets distracted. At least the sprites are pretty cute.
How do I say goodbye to myself?
Recom's version is probably the most consistently good version of the world in the series. I think a future iteration has much higher highs, but I don't think a single minigame here is bad. The story isn't great because it's just KH1s again, but less charming, and also consists of entirely reused rooms, but in Recom, having rooms with actual level design is a novelty, so whatever. Again, least favorite to favorite here, starting with Bumble Rumble. It's okay. I just think it goes on for way too long, and it just feels like I'm not really doing anything to these massive swarms of bees. Also, it's basically just Recom's battle system with slight variations, but my favorite part about Recom's combat is the customization, which is not here. Whatever, it's fine, just not noteworthy. Tigger's Jumpathon, it's literally just Simon. I'm actually like really good at these types of games, and that's not really me tooting my own horn. I went on for so long that I found that Tigger actually has a hard jump limit, and after a while the pattern will actually reset and it'll start jumping around in a different way. I only quit because it was getting pretty boring at that point, but yeah, that's kinda interesting, but other than that, it's just Simon, it's a game. Balloon Glider is actually pretty fun. It's kinda slow, so I could imagine others not liking it, but I don't know, it feels good to play, the controls work really well, and it's satisfying collecting these massive honey orbs. Whirlwind Plunge is just a dive section from Dream Drop, which are sections I do quite like, so this is a great time. And finally, Veggie Panic, and this game. I could play this for hours. The way Sora smacks vegetables is so satisfying. There's some decent gameplay variety with the giant pumpkins and Pooh walking out into the middle of traffic. It's very fun. But yeah, that's all I've really got to say about this version. Recom's is definitely the most derivative edition of the Woods, but I mean, it's got some great mini-games, so I give it a pass.
And hello, somebody I don't know.
Kingdom Hearts 2's 100 Acre Woods is definitely my favorite. They were really cooking with some of these minigames, even if I'd say a couple of them are downright unfortunate. But unlike Recom's Woods, there's an original story and new environments. They're Kingdom Hearts 2 environments, so they kinda suck, but whatever. New stuff! We also get Kanga and Gopher, who are nice additions, and basically every character here now has voice acting. But Owl is still completely silent until the final scene of the world where he gets one line. And because he's not in KH3 and Recom just doesn't have voice acting for any of its Disney worlds, this is the only time we hear him talk in the series. How odd. The story is admittedly not my favorite thing in the world. I get what they're going for with the Pooh forgetting Sora's name plot point. I mean, basically everyone forgot about Sora while he was in the egg pod, but I don't know, it feels a little half-baked, I guess. But the mini-games, my least favorite one is easily the honey pots. I mean, I think it's even worse than Pooh's swing. It ends in literal seconds, which is impressive because the swing already wasn't a long game. And I think giving Pooh head trauma by spinning him around at Mach 10 is way less charming than pushing him on a swaying wooden board. The X-Partition is just a KH2 version of Pooh's Muddy Path. It's fine, and there's a decent amount of treasure chests in this caves, which is kind of fun, I guess. And I'm just gonna group A Blustery Rescue and Balloon Bounce together because I have the same things to say about them. They're immensely simple, almost to a fault, but KH2 has this thing called an incredible game feel. Even though KH2 is not my favorite game in the series, in fact I'd say it's only my fourth favorite, It feels the best to play. Combat, collecting things, general movement, they nailed the game feel, and just controlling Sora feels incredible, and I think Blustery Rescue and Balloon Bounce showed this off well, because despite their glaring simplicity, I love playing them because they just feel so satisfying. The way Sora squishes the balloon beneath his feet as he's preparing to bounce, the spin while he's soaring upwards, the way the big trees and pots stagger slightly while you're attacking them, the honey globs surrounding you before getting sucked in by Sora, is like crack to me. Maybe I understand Tigger's carrot obsession now. I think I slightly prefer Balloon Bounce, but both of these are pretty great. Honey's Slider, this is one of the most insane minigames I've ever played. Everything just zooms past you and it feels so crazy, but you feel so in control the entire time. It feels amazing. Everyone say thank you to Gopher for being so willing to act as a Gopher Shield. Yeah, Cage 2's 100 Acre Wood is pretty cool. I'd say I actually like it more than some actual worlds in Cage 2. I'd put it above Agrabah, Disney Castle, maybe even Port Royal and Pride Lands, depending on how I'm feeling that day. I mean, it's also above Atlantica, but that goes without saying, I think.
Oh yes, my stoutness exercises.
Birth by Sleep is weird to talk about here because there isn't an 100 Acre Wood world. Merlin gives you the opportunity to read the book, but instead of being transported there, you just get a command board based on the property, with the minigame world in this game being Disney Town instead. Honestly, this always struck me as odd, and I would not be surprised if there were plans for a full 100 Acre Wood world and Birth by Sleep, but they decided to do Disney Town instead and gave us a command board as a pity gift. But the board itself is a command board. I like command board a lot because it's just a Cage version of Fortune Street, and I've always found it quite enjoyable, but there's not a lot to say about the boards themselves. This isn't really Mario Party where the boards there have a much greater impact. I'm mostly just mentioning this so I can make this video a complete package.
When I get a rumbly in my tumbly, it's very hard to think of anything but honey.
Finally, Kingdom Hearts 3. I love Cage 3 personally, but this really isn't the video for it, because despite disagreeing with a pretty large chunk of common Cage 3 complaints, yeah, 100 Acre Wood is pretty lame here. I mean, it's literally just one room, one minigame with 3 variants, and they remove many iconic characters like Eeyore and Owl, but still include Gopher and Lumpy. Cool, I guess. I don't really have an opinion here. But I don't really hate Cage 3's woods, it's just very obvious this was thrown in late into development because they knew people would be upset if it wasn't here since it's a tradition of sorts. I think the art style change is quite nice, it's simple but it looks good and gives the place a neat style to it. The lucky emblems are pretty good. I actually do quite like the story here. Pooh's pain about Sora leaving his heart is, ironically, kind of heartbreaking. Pooh is so innocent in all this, and Sora unintentionally hurt him, and since his friendship with Pooh has always been there, it's sad. And I think it's a better version of what Cage 2 is trying to do with his amnesia. The world ends on a somewhat bittersweet note, and, well, with how Cage 3 ends, it's safe to say that Pooh is hurting once again. Sorry to get dramatic, anyway, the minigame, it's pretty good, honestly. It kind of has a similar thing to Cage 2 going on where the actual substance is bitch simple, but it just feels so satisfying to play, and I do think the different variations are more unique than others give them credit for. The first 2 are basically the same, sure, but I don't know, the one with the flowers has a decently complex goal, so it feels pretty different. But yeah, this version is very disappointing. I do think it gets a bit too much flack, because it does have stuff going on, but I can't really blame people for complaining. And I just quickly want to go over the potential future of the world in Cage 4 and beyond. And sad to say, I don't think we'll see 100 Acre Wood in Cage 4. I mean, I could be wrong, Cage 3's woods might be setting something up, and a part of me would be really sad if Sora and Pooh never interact again, especially after their bittersweet goodbye in 3. but I think my gut is telling me that we'll get a new minigame world for this new saga. I think a Muppets minigame world would be very cool and welcome, but if that does happen, I hope when Sora gets back to the Realm of Light, we get to see him reunite with the Pooh Bear, even if it's just a scene in the end credits or something. Oh, you're confused why I seem to be in good health? Well, I actually got cured of Pac-Man fever with honey. I hate how it tastes, but it works. And, like, why do you think bees never have Pac-Man fever? I mean, it's pretty obvious if you look at the facts. But yeah, that's the retrospective. Thanks for watching, all that, blah 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 blah, bye.